Hey everyone, welcome to today's presentation where we're going to dive into a topic that affects us all. It's mental health, but hold up, we're not just talking about any old mental health talk. Nope, we're tackling the wild world of pop psychology and self-diagnosis, specifically through social media. So get ready for a journey that'll have you rethinking everything you thought you knew about mental health. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Dalen. I work at Nexus Youth and Family Services, and I'm a therapist here in the therapy department, and wanted to really cover a couple things regarding mental health. The first one would be, what is? All right, on this slide, let's kick a few things off with a little definition session. So, what is pop psychology? It's kind of like the Instagram filter of the mental health world. It's all about like quick fix, easy to digest explanations for complex mental health issues. So kind of think of it as like a McDonald's drive-through version of psychology. It's fast, it's convenient, but it's not always the healthiest option. And what you see up here is that on the slide, pop psychology doesn't have any rules. On social media, you can really talk about whatever you want. And that means that sometimes people give you misinformation, wrong information, or they only describe certain parts about themselves that make you think like you have the whole story. And you get a lot of this through social media, websites, TikTok, Instagram, um, and TV shows, also radio programs, and sometimes self-help books also describe things from their viewpoint that aren't really based in science. And one thing to know is that real psychology spends years researching, experimenting to make sure that they have the best understanding possible. There's a big difference when you're looking at influencers online. So, self diagnosis. This is pretty dangerous. Ever watch a TikTok and suddenly convince yourself that you have a mental health disorder and you have every single one under the sun? So yeah, we've all been there. Self-diagnosis is like trying to Google your symptoms instead of seeing a doctor. It's quick, it's tempting, but it's not always accurate, and it can lead to some pretty serious consequences. Just as a quick example, if you've got some anxiety about something, which anxiety is normal, everybody experiences anxiety. But if you are seeing something on a social media feed and you're like, oh, I have that, and it comes through because of the algorithm, it keeps coming through, and so you're getting more and more stuff, and you're like, I have an anxiety disorder. And what you really have is maybe something coming up that's pretty scary, like a big test, or asking somebody out, or going on a trip, or, there's a lot of things that create anxiety, but that doesn't mean that you have an anxiety disorder. And oftentimes, when you see people online that have similar symptoms to you, they're talking about they have an anxiety disorder. Now you think you've got one too, when in reality, you don't. It's really important not to self diagnose. How do you get through um, all of the all of the information online? It can be pretty tough, which is why self diagnosis through the internet and through social media is pretty dangerous. So, some common myths. Pop psychology is kind of like the rumor mill on steroids. It's full of juicy tidbits that sound too good to be true, and guess what? They usually are. So, from positive vibes only to just thinking about happy thoughts, pop psychology is kind of chock full of well meaning but totally misleading advice. And it's time to separate fact from fiction and get really real about mental health. So, I have on the slide a couple, uh, some misconceptions and some myths. And it's really important to understand that just because you have a couple symptoms or a couple behaviors doesn't mean that you have a full-blown disorder. Doesn't mean that you have really figured out all of the little details that might contribute to a significant mental health issue. And pop psychology is going to make you feel like you have everything under the sun. A common myth is that all mental health disorders stem from unhealed trauma. Trauma is really popular right now. Everybody's talking about the trauma. But realistically, that trauma is not the only thing that causes mental health disorders. Sometimes it can be brain chemistry. Sometimes it can be significant stress or a significant stressful event, not necessarily a traumatic event, but a stressful event. Sometimes it's the environment. It could be the home that you grow up in. It could be the types of friends that you're hanging out with. It could be work related. Sometimes genetics do play a part, so it's not just about trauma. So just want to give you a couple things about that. So another myth is that people with mental health problems just need to pull themselves out of it. It doesn't just work like that. And sometimes on social media, you see people giving you advice or they're prescribing something to do. Like, if you follow this protocol or you do it this way, you'll pull yourself out. That, and then people try it and then they get really they get dissatisfied and they start to kind of figure out, what's wrong with me? This isn't working. And they learn something through social media that's not a good fit for them, but they don't have a professional telling them the right fit maybe for them. So there's a lot of myths with pop psychology. I just want to make everybody aware of that. All right. It's not all doom and gloom. Despite the chaos of pop psychology, there is a silver lining. And what I like to see is there's a growing interest in real psychology. And so we're talking about science-backed, evidence-based study of the human mind. That's really important. And by learning about psychology from credible sources, we can arm ourselves with the knowledge we need to navigate the world around us, including our mental health. Now, one of the things that social media does is it does provide awareness. Maybe you are suffering some symptoms. Maybe you haven't thought about getting help until you see somebody's story. And that's all great. Maybe you see somebody and they validate what you're going through and it makes you feel a connection with them, and then you decide to go seek medical help or professional mental health services, and that's great. Maybe you see something that gives you an idea of something that you could do to help a friend or a family member that's going through something, and you strike up a conversation, and that's great. The big thing, though, is using credible sources to figure out if you have an actual diagnosis of something. So when we get to the diagnosing part, it's really important to talk about seeking help. So here's the deal. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. Whether it's talking to a friend, reaching out to a counselor, or seeking support from a mental health professional, there's no shame in getting the help you need. Let's break down those barriers and destigmatize seeking help once and for all. So, navigating pop psychology responsibly. Really important. Here's some things you can do. Be open to learning from various sources, not just what's coming through your feed. Avoid overgeneralizing. Not everything is the biggest problem. Not everything counts. Not everything is part of this diagnosis. If you're sad one day, I'm sad all the time. Try not to overgeneralize. Really be specific. Cultivate healthy skepticism. That's a big one. Anytime you see somebody come through in your feed, are they telling me the whole story? Are they making some of this up to sound good? Do they have their facts right? I wonder what that means for me. Maybe I should check some other sources. So just being skeptical about the information that you're getting. Where did they get their information from? We hear a lot, study says. Is it really trustworthy to believe somebody when they say, this study said? Did they really read the study? Did they analyze it? Do they know all of the details of the study? Or are they giving you like a highlight or a specific point that from the study that's backing up just what they want to say, but they're not really including the whole study's information? So be skeptical. Also, sharing your knowledge responsibly. So a lot of times we see something and we send it to a friend. We send it to a family member, or we post something ourselves and we recreate something so that we can post out into the world. Really make sure that you're being accurate. Check sources. Say this is from my point of view only. There's a lot of things that you can do to when you share with people that lets them know, like, this is my opinion. that I saw something that made me think, and this is what I'm sharing, or this is only my story. And saying things, if you're posting and if you're creating content, giving people actual places to go to look up details that you're talking about. Give them credible sources in your post at the end. If you're doing YouTube channels, make sure you're including your resources. Also, make sure you're including resources where you got your information from. That way people can go and look for themselves and read. And most important, if you feel through looking through social media that you might have a mental health concern, you might be in mental health crisis, or you think that you've got a mental health disorder, you have to seek professional advice. Professional advice, therapists, counselors at school, medical doctors, psychiatrists, calling your health provider and getting in touch with certain departments. Another important resource is Psychology Today. Psychology Today is a great way to search for therapists, and you can kind of screen who you want to see. Do you want a female therapist? Do you want a male therapist? Do you want somebody that focuses on teenage trauma? Do you want somebody that works with families? So there's a lot of ways that you can kind of find out the best type of therapist that will work for you. And on Psychology Today, a lot of them are doing intro videos, so you can see who you're looking at. You can see and you can hear what they're saying, and you can kind of read their story and why they want to help people, and that can help you select a therapist that you want to see. So we covered a lot today, but here's the bottom line. Mental health is important, and it's okay to talk about it. Pop psychology and self-diagnosis might be tempting, but they're not always the best way to understand mental health. By increasing our awareness of psychology, busting myths, and seeking help when we need it, we can create a healthier and happier world for ourselves and those around us. I've included in the resource page here our website, www.nexusyfs.org, checking your doctor, pta.org, Healthy Minds for parents, to see what parents need. A lot of information, especially if their children are dealing with some stuff that they might not know how to handle. So I've included some other sources here, www.parentcenterhub.org/mental health. It's a great site for parents to become informed on teen family mental health issues. Verywellmind.com is another great source to check on information. They have a lot of great articles that can point you in the direction, and they share their resources so that you can kind of do a dive and figure out more information if you're looking for it. All right, everybody. I want to say thank you for spending the time with me. Nexus Youth and Family Services. Our phone number is 209-257-1980, extension 101. And please like, comment, subscribe, and share if you made it this far in the video. Thank you, everybody.